Hello, everyone, and welcome to the Power of Your Mind podcast. Today, we're talking about the top 4 destructive roadblocks that prevent us from manifesting success. One of those is not being able to speak correctly. That's number 5, actually. I'm Jim Kellner. I'm hypnotist Jim Kellner, comedy stage hypnotist, hypnotherapist. And of course, I'm co-hosting for my good friend and colleague, the amazing, the wonderful, the fabulous Law of Attraction hypnotist. She's the best-selling author of The Practical Law of Attraction. Align yourself with the manifesting conditions and successfully attract your desires. She's also the founder of HipTalk.com and HypnoCloud apps, giving you access to over 500 hypnosis recordings right in the palm of your hand. So be sure to download that app from the app stores. And with that, welcome, Victoria Gallagher.
Hello, Jim. How are you?
I'm doing great. How are you?
I'm doing pretty good. You know what? I think though, like today, I'm just gonna let the cat out of the bag, the proverbial cat out of the bag.
Wow.
I think this last week or so probably been just a tiny little bit of a funk. And I think there's no better way though when you're sort of like having these things go on than like to teach and to help other people and to use your skills, use the things that you usually use on yourself, use these things to help other people, because I think it's really safe to say that it doesn't matter what level of success you've achieved, how long you've been doing this stuff for. We all get into our little funks. We're not perfect all the time. And, so I think today is really just like a perfect subject matter to really go into, to help other people to realize, you're going to have those, stumbling blocks. You're going to have those kind of self-destructive, self-sabotaging, kinds of behaviors and moments. And so we're just talking about, those things that we do, those things that we say to ourselves, those moments that we get into where, maybe I don't feel like it today. I'm going to start that diet tomorrow. I'm going to start that project next week. Or maybe you're taking on way too many projects, or maybe you start to get into this feeling like maybe I'm just never going to be successful or rise to the level of success that I want to rise to, or I'm not good enough to do any of this. And if other people knew like how I feel sometimes, it's like, would they still like me? Would they still
Right.
would they still buy my products? And that's the thing, is like we hold ourselves up to these impossible standards. But the thing is like most of us struggle with some of these destructive behaviors on a daily basis, or on a weekly basis, or on a consistent basis. And so I just think it's fine just to kind of like let the cat out of the bag and talk about what are some of those things that can stop us from really manifesting the success that we want, some of the thoughts, some of the behaviors, some of the things that we do that prevent us from being successful.
I'm glad you're letting the cat out of the bag, because you know what? I could let the cat out of the bag too. I'm not perfect.
I always thought you were.
A lot of people do. I get messages all the time. Jim, how do you be so perfect? It's interesting because I think of some of the kind of the gurus out there, and I mean, I've never heard Tony Robbins talk about having a bad day since he became Tony Robbins. Since he became right. I remember one time. The thing is I get that you want to seem like you're able to control all those things and handle it, but you got to think there's been at least an hour that he hasn't been, right? I mean, and I remember one time I heard Wayne Dyer talking, and I love Wayne Dyer, still love Wayne Dyer, but one of the things that bugged me was he was saying, I don't remember what it was he was talking about, but he said, but I knew I would have no problem with it because I've always been, whatever it was, very determined or motivated or something like this. And I'm like, oh, okay, well, you've always been that way, so there's no hope for me,
Yeah.
And so I just find people that when they talk about kind of their struggles, and not just the struggles before, but for everybody to understand that. So if you're out there, I mean, all the coaches, all the hypnotists, all talk about how their lives are perfect, and they're not always perfect. But we, like you said, we have the tools and strategies to help us to get back on track, maybe a little bit faster than folks that don't have those tools and mindset.
Exactly. Yeah, I think that's the difference. The difference is that it's, we have the ability to recognize it a little faster, and then we have the tools, and we can choose. Sometimes, we'll choose to, well, maybe I don't feel like feeling better right now.
Right.
Like I want
Exactly. Yeah. I want to wallow a little bit.
I'm gonna just let myself wallow in it. But we also understand what the what can happen, the repercussions of
True.
wallowing in it, just based on experience, based on maybe seeing it in other people. And I think the more we just kind of become familiar with these things that could happen, and recognize that, like, we all feel this way at one time or another, and we can choose to stay stuck there, or we can choose to use the tools. And we're going to talk about some of the tools today that can help pull you out of this mess.
Yeah. When she says we all, of course, we're not talking about Tony Robbins because he's above that, him and Jesus, but the rest of us.
I mean, he is, I don't know. I mean, that guy, he's definitely on another level, I will say,
Totally.
after
Yeah.
having, taken the 4-day virtual, what do you call it? UPW. I'm trying to remember what that even stands for at this moment, but little
Yeah.
brain freeze there. But he's definitely on a different level. I gained so much respect for him, having gone through Unleash the Power Within
Nice.
virtual. It was pretty incredible. And at the same time, I'm absolutely, like, without a shadow of a doubt, have no doubt that somebody that has that high level of success and achievement and standard for themselves, I'm just gonna hazard a guess that their low is probably a low that we can't even possibly imagine. And, because, like, I think that it's like a pendulum, like the swing.
Yeah.
We all have that balance. We all swing back and forth. So the higher you go, the lower you're going to fall. But then the lower you fall, you're going to bounce back up to your same level of standard in your life.
And his low is probably like my high, right?
True. True.
But so what do you consider, what would you consider, I mean, you've worked with thousands of people, you've worked on yourself, of course. What would you consider the four fatal flaws that we're talking about today?
So, yeah, we'll dive into each one of these, but they would be, so number one is procrastination. And these are things that just really are destructive roadblocks that can prevent you from manifesting your dreams. If you really think about it, if you procrastinate, you're never going to get there. You're just never going to take that first step or take all the steps that you need. So number one would be procrastination, and we'll just dive into each one of these as we go. But number two would be perfectionism. Number three would be the fear of failure. And number four would be just lack of having any motivation.
Gotcha. So what can we, I mean, what is the, I mean, I think we all kind of know what the problem with procrastination is, but how do you see that getting in the way, and how can we I guess more importantly, how it gets in the way, but what can we do about it? I mean, especially if we're coming at it from the law of attraction angle, I'm guessing you have an approach because that's what you
Mhm.
specialize in, right? That you could use to get over that.
So procrastination, to me, it's really a habit. It's
Mm,
really something that we're in control of procrastinating. We literally can choose that, but it does kind of get hardwired into our neurology to
mm,
procrastinate. It
mhm.
just leads to, when you procrastinate, you feel that whatever it is, you feel some kind of sense of comfort. You've maybe sometimes actually procrastinating during the when I procrastinate, which I do sometimes, I have I have just like this feeling of almost like beating myself up, almost like I
Mm,
should be doing something else.
yeah.
And then that but that cycle, it just kind of leads to more more feelings of self-doubt, like maybe I don't know what to do. Maybe you're making this excuse for yourself that you just don't even really know what to do. And so, for me, I kind of tend to beat myself up, if I'm procrastinating. And so when you find yourself procrastinating, I think it's really time to kind of question, well, why am I putting this off? I think it's a really, really good question, not to make up more excuses, but to get to the
Hmm.
deeper internal reason in a loving way. Maybe there's a perfectly good reason why you're not taking action on that thing. One of the things that I have found just through doing a lot of parts therapy with clients and asking them, like, what is the positive intention that they're getting out of procrastinating? And I've always found that it's actually that it's their way of taking a well needed break.
Mm,
Like a lot
that
of
makes
times
sense.
yeah, like they don't actually put breaks into their schedule. They don't have any kind of planned break. And so this is like the subconscious mind's way of forcing them to take some kind of a break. But they're not really even getting a break out of it most of the
Because they're
time,
worried
because
about the fact that they're
you're so
procrastinating.
worried that you're not doing it. And, also from a just from a law of attraction standpoint, I think the other thing too is that there's all these little things that we tell ourselves that we have to do,
Mhm.
and we force ourselves to do that. And there's a huge difference between taking inspired action and taking forced action. And so if you're not doing whatever it is that you think that you should be doing, and you're not really feeling, very inspired or motivated to do it, that's where you really want to like kind of ask yourself, what, uh, you know, is there another way? Is there another approach? Something I'm needing? Is there, um, is this fun? Like do I even like doing this? Or is
Mhm.
this a chore? Or I go back to the old Homer Simpson question. Can't someone else do it?
Right. I keep trying to find somebody else who'll do it.
Can't someone else do
I even give them money and they still don't do it.
right? Because maybe that's not your zone of genius. Maybe the
Mhm.
thing that I find that there's things, and I find that more and more often, I just find myself saying, you know what, all I want to do is record hypnosis sessions.
Uh-huh.
That's it.
Yeah.
And when I do that, I mean, that is my zone of genius. Like that is where I go, there is no one else that does this better than me. Like that's where I
Mhm.
really feel confident. And I mean,
Mhm.
I've been doing it for 23 years. Like that's what I
Yeah.
always fall back on. And
Yeah.
so that's where I just kind of feel like, well, if I could just do that all day long, even if, if I
Mhm.
had somebody seed the idea for the script. I'm
Mhm.
never happy with exactly how somebody else would write something for me, but I am fine where I get somebody to like seed the idea for the script and then I rewrite
Yeah.
it.
Okay.
And I rewrite it the way that, it's in my language, it's the way I feel comfortable saying it. And, so any of those things that I'm putting off, maybe there's a legit reason why you're putting it off. And I think rather than trying to force yourself or feel bad that you're not doing that thing that you're procrastinating on, I think, it's like you really want to just ask yourself all of those questions. Is there another way that would be more in alignment with you and your goals and your dreams that would have you feeling the way that you want to be feeling in order to be more, less, what's the opposite of procrastinating? Feeling
Mhm.
inspired, feeling passionate, feeling motivated, feeling like, you want to do this. So I think that breaking procrastination can be done by just simply checking in with yourself, being honest, and looking at it from another um, perspective, another way of going about this thing. What do you think? What are your thoughts about that?
Well, the first thing is I love what you said about that not taking breaks because I think, um, and I'm beating myself up over this all the time, and even my wife even gives me. I don't know how you work your schedule, but unfortunately for me, it's kind of like I don't I don't necessarily have I don't really have any hobbies that I engage in that much. I mean,
Hmm.
I love the work that I'm doing, and I always feel like there's always it's not like a job where you just go and you do your 8 hours. Um, so I find I really do need to just set a schedule and say this is when you're working and this is when you're not,
Yeah.
because it drives her nuts because she'll try to talk to me. I'm like, I'm working, and she's going, but I don't know when you're working. I don't know when are you You're like, if I'm on the computer, I'm working. Well, but you're always on the computer. So, and then I kind of had an argument with her yesterday about it, and I realized that I just feel overwhelmed all the time. And
Hmm.
so last night I mindfully I said, you know what, I'm taking the night off, and I sat down and I watched 3 episodes of The Sopranos, rewatched 3 episodes of The Sopranos, and and it was just marvelous. I said, forget the work. I'm just gonna relax. It was
Yeah.
awesome.
Yeah. I really believe in that those built-in breaks, we not built in, but you have to build them in. You have to
Hmm.
consciously create time when, even though like we love what we do, but
Hmm.
just all work and no play, makes you dull. And it ultimately, I think you do have to kind of like refresh. You've got to
Hmm.
reset, refresh. And, whether you do that, because you sort of alluded to like, you're not sure how I do it. I kind of have over time, because I would work until 8, 9, 10 o'clock at
Yeah,
night.
me too. Yeah. Until I
And
go to
my
bed.
poor husband, he's sitting in the other room. I mean, he's not, I mean, but he's just sitting in the other room watching basketball or baseball or football or whatever season it is, and and then
Hmm.
normally it's kind of like I'm working, so can you put the AirPods on?
Uh-huh.
And it's like, well, when is there time for us? And just like your,
Yeah.
my is, was when is there time for us? And so
Right.
we also just, we've got to balance that out. And so definitely thinking about what else, what else do we want to do? What is a good break? Is it watching TV? Is it going for a walk, going for a hike? getting up, so sometimes for me, the break might just be, taking that time in the morning and,
Mhm.
doing the morning routine but here's the other thing though, too, I'm going to say is it is hard to, um, it's hard to differentiate between work and doing the thing, because like what got us into this work in the first place, we kind of like self-improvement. We kind of
Right.
like meditating, we kind of like journaling, we kind of like reading. And I don't know if this happens for you, but anytime I read a new book, it's like I start going off and thinking about something pertaining to work, how I can apply this in my
Mhm.
work.
Uh-huh. Yeah. Right.
And, so I think it's also important, just given that, is just to find something completely different that completely gets you. Like I was thinking about, like, for myself, one of the little outlets that I was doing was painting.
Mm,
And,
cool.
yeah, which like has absolutely no, but of course, being an entrepreneur, it's like, could
Yeah,
I?
exactly. Some digital prints,
Could I
maybe? I mean,
find a
could I?
way to make money at this?
I'm doing the same thing, of course. Yeah.
And so it's a challenge. But anyway, getting back to the whole procrastinating thing, it's just, creating, finding out why you're procrastinating, and then also, um, putting in some breaks into your life. And then before you know it, you're literally going to be springing forward back into like action again, because
Mhm.
when you take that necessary break and you take that time out, then that's going to fill up that need. And when that need is filled up, then you're going to naturally come back and want to get back into action again.
Yeah, and I think, what you talked about earlier was a really good thing too, is like, if you can, is there someone else that can do that thing that you really despise doing or just have no time for, that doesn't, it's not using your time as effectively. Um, I've tried to do that in work, but as we talked about earlier, I've had no luck with that yet, still hoping. Um, but I do remember I was working with a client one time, and he said, I have no time for exercise or for meal prep. And we were kind of trying to brainstorm some stuff. And I kind of said, because he goes, well, I've got to clean the house, I got to do this. And I just said, would it be possible to have someone come in and help out with the cleaning? And he paused for a minute. And he goes, am I like, what did he say? Something like, am I at that level where I could hire someone to clean for me? And I, and it turned out he could. And he's
Yeah.
not rich. I mean, he could. It's not really that expensive.
It's not.
Um,
It's not.
and
We've been doing that pretty much since the dawn of time, and we've had somebody come in, like every 3 weeks, we have
uh-huh.
somebody come in and clean. And, it's like it's like it's just under a couple $100.
That's so worth
And
it.
it's totally worth it. You got to think about, what is your time worth? I mean,
Exactly. Yeah.
and if you absolutely dislike, some people like cleaning, but I've
Mhm.
I've never really been very domesticated. And, there's just other things that, I want to be doing with that time. So totally 100%. I mean, think about all those things. I mean, just outsourcing
Yeah.
all of those things. And, outsourcing it is a little bit of an art, and it does require a little bit of patience sometimes. And that is one of the things you have to be. I'm just going to put this, can also lead to procrastination, is that when, I mean, sometimes it's easy, you think it's easier just to do the thing
Mm.
yourself, like,
Yeah.
than to explain it to somebody else. So then you can procrastinate in finding somebody to
Right.
do the thing, because it's like, "Oh, I'm just gonna do it this time around." But you have to be disciplined. I think that that's one of the things I have found myself, I've just said, "No, stop." And you have to
Yeah.
really think about, like, what is it really going to cost me right now if I just didn't do this thing? Like, does
Right.
this really have to be done right now? And
Mhm.
wouldn't it be worth it just to find somebody and really, go through all that you have to go through to really find that right person? Because it can be a little bit challenging. You and I have both realized and found that to be true. It can be a little bit challenging, but I think in the end, if you just plan that into the the whole the whole thing of it takes time to hire somebody, but in the end it's going to be worth it because you're going to end up having somebody that eventually that knows what they're doing and that can help you with the things that you don't really want to do, and that's going to free you up to do more of the things that you do want to do.
And I mean, let's face it, you can never really grow into a larger version of your company and yourself if you don't, you can't do everything. And
Mhm.
I kind of think for myself, and I think what you're kind of mentioning there too is that, and you mentioned this other fatal flaw earlier, is the perfectionism. I mean,
Mm.
are they going to be able to do it as well as I do it? And am I going to find the perfect person and all that? So, I mean, that's a great lead into perfectionism.
It really is, and, to me, they're so closely related. Perfectionism, I mean, it's a type of procrastination,
Mhm.
and I think one of the things too is that, like, no one is perfect, but, we will look out in the world, and most people wanna, um pretend to be perfect, or they
Mhm.
put they I mean, look, and not very many people are taking pictures of themselves during when they're having a bad hair day. Like,
Right.
I usually most of the time I'm walking around the house with my shorts and my tank top on, no shoes, my hair's not done, I have no makeup on, I don't look perfect. And that's not the time that I'm going on TikTok and
Right.
making Instagram reels. I'm making them when I'm in a good mood, I'm happy, I'm inspired, I'm passionate, I've come up with some great ideas. And then, even then, and I'm sure you could relate to this, I don't I don't post all the ones that I make. I
Mhm.
leave them in drafts for a little while.
Yeah.
And then I'll kind of like look back at them a little bit later and it's like, are those the ones that I put? All that to say, we're always putting our best foot forward, and so is everyone else.
Yeah.
Um, but it gives us this perception like, boy, I better get my shit together
Right.
because everyone else has their shit together.
Exactly. Yeah.
And it was the other day, I was one of my neighbors who actually has become one of my followers, and she she pulled up, and I just vomited on her. I gave her just a mouthful of, like, all this stuff that was, like, going wrong that I would never, ever say on social media because I'm
Uh-huh.
the queen of law of attraction, and I
Right.
need to be constantly talking about, inspiring things, and I'm not allowed to have any problems, right? So I put
Right.
all this pressure on myself to look a certain way, to look perfect. And it kind of it hit me the other day when I was sharing, because we have blurred lines between we're friends and yet she's following me, and she's like, wow, she's like, I'm so glad you shared all that with me because I thought you had I thought you had, like, all your shit together or
Right.
whatever,
Yeah.
and it kind of makes me feel a little bit better about myself. Like, whatever I was going on, having a bad day, it's like it made her feel like, "Oh, I guess we all have, bad days." But anyway, so I think that's the thing, is we're just always, we're always trying to live up to this false premise that there is some sort of thing as perfection, and there really isn't. And then just getting into like trying to be perfect at the law of attraction, which I try
Mhm.
to be. I try to be perfect at the law of attraction. I mean, if I don't meditate every single day of my life for a certain, then then I'll kind of give myself a little bit of a hard time. It's like, well, see, it's no wonder that
Mm.
all your dreams
Yeah.
aren't coming true yet, because
Because you missed yesterday.
you missed that meditation, or you're not meditating deep enough, or you're letting yourself go down the train of thought, blah 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 blah, all these
Mhm.
little uh you know feelings of judgment. And honestly, it can be really painful. It can be really, really painful to have such a high, to hold yourself to such a high standard that you can
Mhm.
really never live up to.
Right.
And, or trying to judge, trying to, compare yourself to all these people that are really just putting on a show. And that's,
Yeah.
you know, Uh, and it's not to say, I mean, like why would we want to show our worst selves
Right.
in public? I mean, obviously, that people do people do tend to judge you. There's a, I'm not going to mention any names, but there's a what do you call, influencer that I've been following for a couple of years, and she's wigging out right now on social media, and just kind of
Mm.
like going through it, and she's being very transparent about it. And it's like, kind of like, whoa, she's not
Ah,
perfect, you
right.
know and then it kind of makes you like, it just, people do have a tendency to judge. And so you don't want to put yourself in that role of being judged, but we all do it.
Yeah.
We all do it. We do it to each other, and we do it to ourselves. And so I guess, the point is to break that, to break that destructive behavior. We have to remember that no one is perfect. I mean, no one is perfect. And so, we need to focus on what we are doing right. We need to focus on our progress. We need to focus on our accomplishments. We need to focus on what we do have. I mean, that's the thing that always makes me feel better. Like, it's so easy to get yourself into this negative downward spiral, like where like one thing leads to another. It's like, well, this isn't going right, and this isn't going right, and this isn't going right, I'm just never blah blah blah, and all of the negative stuff, and you start negative spiraling. And to me, like, the only thing that really gets me out of that cycle of the negative spiraling and thinking, uh, you know, whatever, all the negative things, is switching the focus to gratitude,
Mm.
to celebrating all of my accomplishments. I mean, all I have to do is just walk through my house and walk into each room of my house, and like, oh, this is a really nice room. I
Cool.
did
Yeah.
this. Like, look at all these books
Yeah.
I wrote. I did this.
Yeah.
Look at all of these, look at my app. Oh my God, look at all these recordings I made. I did this. Look at my
Yeah.
husband. He's pretty hot. Look at all
Yeah.
these cute cats running around the place.
Yeah.
And before you know it, you kind of realize, well, okay, my life may not be perfect, but number one, there's nothing perfect. And look at all that I have accomplished. Look at, whether they're small things. Look, I got out of bed. I made the bed today. I did the laundry. I emptied the dishwasher.
Yeah.
I made coffee. It tasted good. I feel good. Like, and when you start to actually focus on the good things and the big and small accomplishments, and you're not trying to keep up with everybody that you see on social media that's just pretending to be perfect, and we're all pretending to be perfect because, none of us are, you start to feel good. And you have to realize that you can only do your best. You can only do your best, and your best is going to change moment by moment.
Sure.
You're not going to do as well if you haven't had any sleep, you haven't had any eat, if you just had a fight with your spouse or that client, or you just got a negative review, or you're dehydrated, or there's a death in the family, or anything like that. And then sometimes your best is going to be even better than normal because you're in a place of elation. You just had something amazing happen, and you're in you just completed an amazing project, and you're feeling like, whoa, I'm super amazing today.
Yeah.
And, so I think really the key is not judging yourself, realizing that, not everybody's perfect. You're always doing your best. Your best is going to change, and just to focus on the key is to focus on the progress, not the perfection.
Yeah. And one thing I want to, I'm reminded of a quote by a guy, Doug Grady, and I don't even know really who he is. I just know I heard him on a podcast one time, and he said that, what do you say? Perfectionism nourishes procrastination.
Mm-hmm.
And I thought that was so just really hit home for me. It's like, it really does.
No, it really does. It really does. I absolutely agree. It fosters that, that feeling like it's like, well, I'm not going to be perfect at this, so let me just try to figure it out a little bit more. Let me read a few more books. Let me take a few more courses. Let me get a few more
Yeah, exactly.
degrees. Let me get
Yeah,
some more validation.
right. And like in
All
our
of that.
field, let me take another hypnosis class and another modality and another protocol and
Mm-hmm.
before they actually launch their business. It's something that I wrestle with my students all the time, trying to get them out there. And but, I was thinking too about this. I kind of struggle with that whole influencer thing and the perfectionism. Because in my book, my editor, she so I had written some. I can't remember what exactly it was. I still struggle with. I give some techniques for getting over certain things, and one of them is this idea like of shyness in certain situations. And I said
Mm-hmm.
something like, it's something that I still struggle with from time to time, but this technique helps me. And she said, if you're the expert, I don't want to know that you still struggle with it. And she said I should take it out. And I'm kind of on the fence. I get her point, but on the other hand, I'm like, I want people to know that I'm not there yet. This technique helps, but it doesn't necessarily hasn't cured it yet. So anyway,
I think honestly, I think showing your vulnerabilities and your weaknesses, I mean, if the whole thing was like,
yeah, the whole thing was I suck, but you should follow my advice. Yeah,
yeah, but I think to share that you still have, some weaknesses, and we all do. And I just think that shows your humanness, and people can relate more to, that, okay, there's still, you're a work in progress, just like the rest of us.
yeah. I
And
think I'm gonna leave it.
just because you write a book and you're an expert on something doesn't mean you're perfect.
Yeah,
It doesn't mean you're better than, human.
yeah. I agree. I think I'm gonna leave it in. So, fear of failure. What can you tell us about fear of failure?
So, it's natural for people to feel some fear, or doubt, or stress, or worry whenever we're, pursuing anything, especially something that we haven't pursued before. And in a lot of ways, I think it's very similar to perfectionism, or I think that the essence of perfectionism is the fear of failure, because we want to get it perfect because we don't want to fail. So it's interesting how, like, all of these destructive behaviors, they're all kind of interlinked and connected. If the perfectionism ultimately leads to procrastination, but we're doing it because we're afraid that we're going to fail.
Yeah,
But if we just let ourselves be controlled by that fear, it's going to prevent you from taking action. It's gonna prevent you from doing taking those risks, and it's all a risk, right? I mean, otherwise we'd be doing it. If it wasn't uncomfortable, if we weren't afraid of it, then we would be doing it. But I kind of like to think of overcoming this fear like, um, we may not be able to overcome the whole fear of the whole thing all at once, but we could take on a little bit of it.
Mhm.
Like think about like if we were going to climb a big mountain, we were going to climb Mount Everest. I mean, anybody that I've ever known, I've only known one person, Carl,
Carl Smith.
Carl Smith, and I didn't ask him, but I would, I would suggest that he probably had a hint of some fear about,
Mhm. Sure.
climbing Mount Everest for the, first time. I think he did it actually a couple of times.
I think he did. Yeah.
And, so I would imagine
Amazing.
that's probably why most people take on something like that, is because you're facing a fear. Now, like if you're jumping out of a airplane, you have to take that all on all at once.
Yeah.
But, or at least just stepping out of the airplane, but you kind of know, like, at that point you're taking it all on. But if you look at the top of the mountain and you think about all the things that could go wrong as you're climbing to the top, then you're probably never going to get started. And I think also it's like the same thing with running a marathon. And I don't know if you realize this, but like pretty much anyone of average health can run a marathon. Like
Wow.
anyone, any single
Seems
person.
superhuman. It seems like Mount Everest.
Yeah, it does. It absolutely does. But there are training programs that make it possible for anyone to do it. And you just have to prepare the right way. Like the first thing you have to do, it might be scary, but the first thing you have to do is just get up off your couch. Like that's step one, I mean, you want to so whenever you're taking any fear on, I'm
Mhm.
just kind of using this as an analogy, but any
Yeah.
fear, it all, it's just the very, very first step. And once you get into that very first step, then it makes that second step a little bit easier. So the second step would be, okay, maybe now you put your running shoes on, or you get a pair of running shoes if you don't already own a pair of running shoes, and you go outside. For some people, just walking out the front door and deciding that you're going to run. And literally, I've had those moments where even I just feel too lazy to actually run, so I'll
Mhm.
just walk. But like as soon as I put myself into that like little groove, and it's like, oh, this is so much easier than before I did it. It's like all
Mhm.
I'm doing is just, picking up my feet a little higher
Right.
and going at just a little bit of a faster pace, and just kind of jumping a little bit. And it's not really that hard. And so you overcome fear like just one step at a time. And, but anyway, a person can, before you know it, just by doing one step and then completing that step and then doing another step, before you know it, maybe you're able to run a half mile, then you're able to run a mile, then you're able to run 2, 3, 4, 5 you just keep adding to it. And before you know it, like I remember when I was first marathon training many, many years ago, and I was able to run 5 miles, and on my little schedule, it said next week you're going to run 6 miles. I'm like, I just, I mean, I feel like I just gave this everything that I had.
Yeah.
How am I gonna run how am I gonna be ready to run 6 miles? But somehow or another, I was able to run 6 miles. I was able to put that
Yeah.
together. And the same is true for any goal. You
Mhm.
think that this might be a little bit more, difficult to achieve, but really, it's just a matter of overcoming the most minute little fears one at a time. And, so when you first take on running a marathon, you're not going to compare yourself to somebody who's run 10 marathons, right? And I mean, you're just not going to be able to do that. And nor should you compare yourself to somebody who's earning $10 million if you're only ever earning right now $50,000. But there are training programs out there. Just like there's training programs for running, there's training programs for how to earn money, how to start your own business, how to find the love of your life, how to write a book, how to there's just training programs and coaches and programs and step-by-step processes to learn how to do anything and to learn how to just follow a step-by-step, process.
Yeah.
And so, the only way that you are going to fail is if you choose to give in.
Yeah. And there's so many stories too of people that I mean, this just failed over and over again, and then they, in the end, they achieved great things. I mean, we're talking about famous politicians. Abraham Lincoln, famous failure. I mean, failed his way to the presidency, right? I mean, um,
Yeah. Yeah, and
it's
it's like, what do you make that mean about you?
yeah, yeah, and it's amazing how we put when we're kids, we're just constantly exploring and we're taking those first steps and everything. And then as we become adults, it's like, boy, you try something one time, and if you're not great at it, you just give up. I
Mhm.
see that all the time, and
Yeah.
one of the things I think that helped me so much is I'm so glad I became a performer because um, it was scary as hell, and it's still scary a lot of times. But so I still feel the fear of failure, but it very rarely stops me from moving forward. It's like I just do it anyway. And sometimes, I mean, like I'm driving to a gig sometimes going, why do you put yourself through this? You know, because you, you never know how it's going to go. And then you show up to the venue and you're like, oh, this is going to be awful. I hate to predict, but it's going to be awful. And I could just get a regular job. Why do you do this? But you just move forward, and it doesn't kill you. So
No, exactly. It and that's I'm actually looking something up on my phone while we're talking here because I will just kind of want to share something. Um, but you reminded me when you said, "Why do I put myself through this?" And that's kind of similar to how I've felt a lot of times, when preparing for my you know, just past law of
oh yeah,
attraction intensive.
right, yeah,
And
why?
like what I mean, that's it's a lot. There's so much involved in
Right.
that. And so just like out of the blue, even though there was like there was literally no reason for her to send me an email or anything, and I still need to reply to her. But she just reached out to me and she said, thank you so much, Victoria. I had applied your feedback after the intensive, and I feel great with shortening and simplifying my routine. I enjoy it so much better now since it doesn't feel like an extra task as part of my routine. I really got so much out of the LOA intensive. Truly grateful for you. That was an amazing group to be a part of. We're all working toward our own goals at our own stage of life. Thank you for everything. I wish you all the best. Excited to use your app soon. Um, and wished me happy birthday and all that, but it was just like, that's why I put myself through that,
Yeah.
because that's the transformation that's available, for other people. And it's just so it's really about like finding that reason,
Yeah.
finding that reason, and realizing that, it's always a choice though. It's like if I didn't um if I didn't run that whole marathon, well, it's because at some point the pain in my body, the feeling of exhaustion, the being out of breath or whatever became too much for me to handle. But I said it's too much.
Hmm.
Like I'm the one that said, I can't do this anymore. I'm going to
Hmm.
stop. I
Yeah.
made that decision. And that's okay. And maybe you chose to fail at one point, but then you get back up and say, "You know what? I'm going to do this again if it's important to you." And you
Right.
say, "Okay, I didn't, like it's not like it didn't, but I didn't." And if you take responsibility for it, I think it just makes it that much more empowering to realize, like, well, there was a decision that I made. So I don't have to be afraid of it because it's my own decision. And
Hmm.
I can choose to keep going, or I can choose to look at this as a detour. I can choose to get back up again. I can choose to keep, reset the process. I can choose to um, go another direction if I realize, oh, maybe I was going the wrong way.
Yeah.
I could choose to set a more achievable goal for myself. I can choose to get support that I need, that maybe I didn't have enough energy that day because I didn't have enough Gatorade with me.
Right.
Or enough goo or whatever. And so you can just kind of look back because in the NLP world, we say there's no such thing as failure, there's only feedback. And
Right.
so we can look at the feedback that we got from that thing and decide, okay, was that really even important to me? And, and if it is important, then you can take that feedback and apply what you learned and do it again. And this time, you'll either go all the way or you'll probably make more progress than you made the last time.
Yeah. And so, I mean, I think it's fair to say that you're obviously very motivated to do the marathon. But
Mhm.
the last of our topics is lack of motivation. So what if somebody's not as motivated as you were to finish a marathon, for instance?
Yeah, and I think, we were talking earlier today about how like some of us have a little bit more built-in things that we're, that we're good at. Like for me, it's motivation. Like that's and discipline. Like I kind of come with that, like
Hmm.
that like Victoria comes equipped with.
Awesome.
I think
Standard features.
it's a standard feature that I think
Right.
I was kind of born with, but I can identify with those moments of not having all the motivation that I need. So I am able to sort of, think about like what is it that I do when I'm, something just seems like a real daunting task, and I just don't seem to have the motivation. And kind of hearkening a little bit back to like the marathon stuff too, is to also realize like one of the things that it was a rule for me when I would run any kind of race, was that I had to, at minimum, I had to at least keep running. Like I couldn't stop running because I just understand the principle all too well, that that energy in motion stays in motion. So even if you're feeling like you can't completely take on the world, don't just stop altogether. Do something, do some small little thing. Just kind of keep yourself in motion. Because if you stop altogether, it's really hard to get back that motivation. And so so it's like, how do you keep doing that though when you feel lazy, when you're feeling tired? And so what I do is you have to take a look at what you're thinking and what you're focused on. Like, so if I would, while I was running, if I would just allow those thoughts, because the thoughts are going to come, right? You can't ever get rid of the thoughts that are telling you, oh, just stop. Oh, don't get started. Oh, just lay here a little longer. You can listen to those thoughts all you want, but those are not the thoughts that are going to get you up off the couch and get you doing whatever it is that you need to be doing. So you've got to change your focus. You've just got to shift your focus. And so what I would do, like, say, just as an example of running, is if I listen to my body telling me like, oh, you're tired, oh, you should just stop. I mean, when you're at mile 18 and you still got a
Mhm.
few more miles to go, and you're tired.
Right.
Your body is like starting to like break down, and it's starting to like you're mentally also, like, it's mentally draining,
Yeah.
because it's like this mental force that's like, keep going, keep
Mhm.
going, keep going. And so if you just allow yourselves to give in to like, oh, I can't do it. I feel, I'm just exhausted. I feel tired. If that's where you put your focus,
Yeah.
you are going to stop. You're going to stop. And so before I would even allow those thoughts to even creep into my head, because that's like the danger zone for anything, any kind of momentum that you need, any kind of project that you're working on. Like, if, with writing a book, for example, if you just like, oh, I don't feel like writing anymore. Well, and I hesitate to say this because it's like, on the one hand, it's like, yes, we want to find the inspiration and we want to not force ourselves, and we do want to have all those built-in breaks. But at the same time, we also want to balance that with having our focus on what is going to drive us to keep going. And so what's going to drive us to keep going is thinking about like the little chunks of that book that we can get done. Okay, maybe maybe you're not going to finish the whole book right now in this one sitting. Don't think about finishing the whole book right now in this one sitting, but maybe just finishing the paragraph, finishing the page, finishing the chapter. And that was kind of like the same type of thing like when I would be running. It's like, well, okay, I'm not even going to think about that I have to run 6 more miles to get to the
Mhm.
end, because that's overwhelming.
Yeah.
But there is that pole right there. I'm just going to run to that pole and see what happens.
Yeah. I've
you
done that.
know?
Yeah. You run to the
And
pole.
then, yeah, so I can
Next to it and the
get to
next
that
one.
pole. I can see
Right.
it. It's right in front of me. And
Yeah.
then not into the pole,
Yeah.
alongside it. And so there it is. Goodbye, pole. And then there's another little goal. And so you just have these tiny, tiny little achievable goals. And that really can build in instant little pieces of motivation. You don't have to take on the whole thing at once, just this little bit, And then before you know it, you've achieved a bunch of like little micro goals. And just the other thing, I mean, at the outset, I mean, just to start to achieve anything, to have and stay motivated, you've got to have the desire in the first place, and you've got to have the belief. You've got to have the belief that you can accomplish that desire. I think having a desire without the belief is what ultimately can interrupt that motivation.
And like Henry Ford said, whether you think you can or you think you can't, right? You're right.
You're right.
Yeah.
You're right.
I know too, you want to talk about Pomodoros. I mean, if people aren't using that, they're so helpful. Do you want to explain what that is?
Yeah, definitely. That was one of the things that came up during my seminar that a lot of people hadn't even, and it was like a game changer. And it's been a game changer for me. And anytime I've ever used these, that I really use, this is a tool that I use in my life to keep me focused, to keep me moving forward, to keep me motivated, to keep me, just pressing on. And it's a really, really simple tool. And there's all kinds of little supportive things. You can get apps, I have like a little downloadable sheet, people can download when they read my book or when they take my 21-day manifesting challenge, which I highly encourage anybody to do. The 21-day manifesting challenge is a course, is a step-by-step, and it's going to take you through the whole process to help you to ultimately achieve a goal, which is just another motivation tool. But the Pomodoros, essentially how it works is it's just about chunking the large amount of time into small chunks of time. So for example, let's just say you have a project that you're working on. Maybe it's, again, like just writing a book, just for all intents and purposes. Most of us are authors or want to be authors. So I kind of like to use that.
Yeah.
So great. And so today I'm going to be working on chapter 6 of this book. And so you write down, this is the task that I'm going to be working on. And then you work on that task in 25-minute increments. Work on it for 25 minutes and then take a 5-minute break. And then work on it again for 25 minutes and then take a 5-minute break. And you do that for a set of 4 times, and then you can take a half-hour break. And so in a day, like where I have created, say, 8 hypnosis sessions in one day, that I've used Pomodoros to do that. Like I'll either record one or half of a session in that 25-minute period of time. I get up, I walk around, I do something completely different. You have to be strict with yourself to do that. And the whole thinking about that is that you really can't be completely focused and completely productive, and intensely focused for much longer than that 25 minutes. And so you give yourself that whole 25 minutes to focus on just that one thing. You do not check Facebook. You do not check your email. You do not do anything else other than just that task that you're working on. So you work on that task. But then you force yourself also. It's like, oh, not just one more minute. No. You get up,
right,
and you go away and you do something for 5 minutes. Maybe you just, walk around your house, or you go pet the cat, or, you go get a glass of water, or you meditate, or you just do something else. And then you're refreshed again. And it's amazing how much productivity you can get accomplished in this period of time. So 25 and 5, and you do that 4 times, and then you take a break. And I've done as many as like 4 of those in one day. That's almost
amazing.
Impossible to do.
That's a lot of focus.
It's a lot of focus.
Yeah.
And you will be surprised when you do this kind of focus work, how much more productive you actually are. Because, if we're being honest, I mean, most of the time we're just halfway focusing on anything.
Right.
And, just kind of like allowing ourselves to just get hit with all these distractions, and our thoughts being the biggest distraction of all. And to me, when I know I'm going to do the Pomodoros, that fuels me with motivation, because I know it's just 25 minutes at a time. And it's just it's just crossing that was just like running to that pole, it's like, okay, I can do that. And then now I get a break. And anybody can, and if you want to start, even if you can't focus on something for 25 minutes, you can change the rules of this to anything that you want. You could
Yeah.
just focus for 10 minutes and get up and walk around for 2 minutes. You can change the rules. And so those are Pomodoros. And I actually thought, of course, because I'm, always thinking about different things. I actually thought about creating a course to teach
Mm,
people how to do these Pomodoros,
great
and make
idea.
them work, more effectively for them. But I don't know. I'm not sure if there's enough content there to create a whole course
Yeah.
around it. I'll think about it. But anyway.
Yeah, maybe just a hypnosis to keep them on task, to stay focused for that 25 minutes.
Exactly.
Because it's
Exactly.
tough. I know it takes a lot of discipline, because I started doing them a few years ago, but I'll
Hmm.
still like, I'll still think, I'll just look over at Facebook real quick, or, I'll, just want to, it's like, it really does take, and I think especially nowadays where our attention is so fractured, it's a great way to learn how to focus again, you
Hmm.
know, um, and I can't imagine you going through 4 Pomodoros, because my goal is if I can get through 2, that's like
Hmm.
4 hours of really productive work. I'm like, I'm done for the day. That's
Yeah.
fine. That's a great
Yeah.
day's work,
It
because it
really
takes
is.
so much mental energy.
Yeah, it really is. Yeah, it's a rare day that I actually do 4. I mean, I'm
Yeah.
not saying I do that all the time. That's
Yeah. Yeah.
a goal, and I've done it a few times.
Yeah.
But, usually I'll hit like 2 or 3, in an average high focus day. And it has to be a high focus day. I don't know that doing Pomodoros every single day. I mean, at that level, doing 3 or
Yeah.
4. I
Oh,
don't
yeah.
I don't know if anybody
Tough.
really does that. It's a
You
lot
know
of
what?
focus.
I want to mention something too, what you said about this, like, feeling like you want to do it or something. I remember I was talking to a friend one time, and he was saying, if he goes, yeah, if I could just, I just need to get more motivated to go exercise. And I told him, I said, no, you just need to go exercise,
Mhm.
because
Mhm.
this is the thing. People are waiting for that motivation when, like you said, the momentum, the action is what actually keeps that motivation going. So even if you just, I told him, if you go out for a 5-minute walk or stretch for 5 minutes, it'll get easier the next time. And every single time you do it, it just gets easier.
You know what? I wanna speak to that because just recently, like, so you and I both came back from, HypnoThoughts, with COVID. It kinda went around, and I had that. And, one of the things, at least for me, that I experienced was, a little bit of a dip in my energy,
Hmm.
and actually a lot of a dip in my energy. But at some point, I just kind of said, you know what, screw that. I am going to create energy. And the way that you create energy is you make energy by being in energy. And
Yeah.
so, just like I was saying earlier, like energy in motion stays in motion. And so I went out and I created energy. Went for, I just would, every day I would go out for longer and longer walks and just kind of force myself to make myself be more energetic. And it really works. I mean, you really, I mean, I'm not advising. I'm sure, like, I'm having really, really major bad symptoms. I mean, I'm not a doctor. I can't advise you how to do
Sure.
that. But there does come a point, though, whether you're dealing with COVID or you're dealing with just whatever. I mean, just having uh gone off a lazy streak or lack of
Hmm.
motivation. You put yourself into the motion. You put and that is how energy is ultimately created.
And one of the things, this is scientific, too, in this, and I remember learning this in massage school. If you've been a couch potato for a long time, the less energy you expend, then the less energy your body's going to give you. And it's really is at a cellular level. The mitochondria are the little powerhouses in the cells, and
Hmm.
you will grow more or decrease the amount depending on the activities that you do. And
Hmm.
so if you're not using it, you're losing it because the body wants to be efficient. And so it really does, like on an actual cellular level, scientifically, it's been shown that if you start to move your body more, you'll get more energy. So
Yeah.
it
No,
really, it just helps.
it makes a lot of sense. I mean, it's like, how many times have you ever just like, sat on the couch for, several hours at a time, and then it's like, oh, all of a sudden I have like a burst of energy. It's like, no, that doesn't
Right,
happen.
exactly. You don't
I
rest
mean,
your way
unless you
into
get some kind of an idea to that, like, oh, I really
right.
want to go and do that thing. But it's, you're
Yeah.
not, you're, I really like what you said there. It really makes a lot of sense.
And as for feeling it, like I tell people, like if I only exercised when I felt like it, I wouldn't.
Mm-hmm.
So that's just me. So you don't have to wait to feel like it. Just go do it, or whatever it is. Even, some of the work that I do, I know some of the work you do, it's not all, fun and games. There's tedious stuff. And, again, if I only wrote terms and conditions when I felt like it, would not write terms and conditions.
Yeah. Or can someone else do that?
Right. Exactly. See, there's a great one. Yeah, there's a good idea right there.
Exactly.
Great point. So you did mention your and I want to go back to this real quick because you talked about your 21-day course. How would people get that at your
Oh,
website?
yeah. Yeah. So if you go to 21daymanifestingchallenge.com, there is a link there to sign up for this. It's actually on special right now for, it's like normally $97, but I have it for $37 right now. So it's like
Wow.
$60 off. And I mean, it's life changing. The people have gone through this course. It's just a, one step at a time. So you don't have to take on the whole thing in one day. It's just one day at a time. And it takes you through all the manifesting conditions. And it's really an amazing course. And so I highly, highly recommend, and it just gives you that sense of accomplishment in such a short period of time, 21 days. And you really feel like, wow, this was, because it does take something to complete the course. That's why it's called the challenge. And, so it is, available at 21daymanifestingchallenge.com.
You've always got so many cool things, always something new that you're always helping people with. I love it.
Thank you. And right now, we're still in the final stages. Final meaning weeks,
Whenever.
days,
Months,
months,
years.
years.
Hopefully not years.
Hopefully not years. But yeah, sometime, before the end of this year, 2022, we should be launching the new app. I am still keeping all of the goodies a secret. We're rebranding, renaming. There's just a whole bunch of new features that are going to be in the app. One of the questions I get often is like, well, should I hold off before I've been thinking about upgrading my HypnoCloud app. No, you definitely should not hold off because number one, the lifetime subscription is going away. So if you want to get lifetime access to my new app, then you should go ahead and just get the lifetime access now, because all of those people are going to be grandfathered into my new app and they're going to get lifetime access to everything. And
Wow.
they're going to be lucky, lucky, lucky people when you realize everything that's available in this new app and, new content being, put into it all the time. And monthly, so I believe, the monthly is going up, the yearly is going down. We're just kind of going to be a little bit more on level with, some of the other apps out there competitively priced with Aura, Breathe, Calm, Headspace, all of those guys. And yeah, I mean, there's so much coming in this new app. It's really, really exciting. Just don't know when it's going to be done. That's the hardest part. But just trust me, it will be there. It'll be very worth it. And yeah, go ahead and subscribe now because you have absolutely nothing to lose and everything to gain.
And there's so many good programs you could be taking advantage of right now. You don't want to wait. like 2, 3,
Exactly.
4,
Well, not
6
only
months.
that, but everything that we've
Yeah.
been talking about during this session, I mean, I've given you some conscious mind ways to approach these things, but if you're dealing with any of these roadblocks, then hypnosis is the best tool ever to help you to make the changes in your subconscious mind. So all that we just were talking about, the procrastination, the perfectionism, fear of failure, motivation. Of course, those are sessions that, we have tons of sessions to help you with that right inside what is now still called HypnoCloud. And since
Right.
I've been dealing with the new name, it's like
Yeah. You gotta
it's
stop
almost
yourself.
like becoming awkward to even say HypnoCloud anymore, but
Yeah.
you'll know soon enough.
Fantastic.
Believe
Actually,
me, you'll
by the
know.
in fact, by the time this one drops, I mean, it should have been available, but we don't think it's going to be. But
Yeah, exactly. By this time this one drops, this is dropping in October sometime. This is dropping right about the time that the app developers are telling me that it should be done, but I
yeah.
happen to believe otherwise.
Victoria, it's great talking to you today.
You too, Jim. And I know we probably yammered on a little longer than normal, but hopefully you guys got some great value out of today's episode. Feel free to reach out and, download the app, download the course, review our podcast, reach out to Jim, find out his schedule for when he's doing his next stage hypnosis, and he also has some great things coming down the pike. You've got an app coming out, you've got hypnosis sessions, and your
A
YouTube
book
channel
someday.
and your TikTok. I mean, you've got all kinds of great things going on too. So thank you so much for being a great co-host with me. Thank you guys for being great listeners of the Power of Mind podcast, and we will see you next week.